Before anyone else awoke, before text messages chimed and inboxes bloomed and the city fully exhaled into morning, Marcelline stood alone in her apartment, staring at her reflection. The mirror didn't lie, but it didn't tell the whole truth either. Beneath the tailored silk robe cinched tight at her waist, beneath the practiced curve of lips that remembered how to smile even now, even without witnesses, her body ached in ways she couldn't articulate. Not sharp, not specific. Just an ambient, relentless tiredness. It was the ache of holding it all together. The ache of a mask worn too long, fitted too well. In the early light, her eyes betrayed her more than her posture did. Their surface was clear enough. No redness, no puffiness, no overt signs of collapse. But deeper there was a dullness, a distance, like glass left untouched too long in a rainless attic. Last night's conversation echoed faintly in her chest. Valerie's gentle, searching words. Silas' clipped, oblivious praise. Her mother's carefully worded letter, unopened still on her desk. All of it swirled, muted, weighty, unprocessed. For years, Marcelline had outpaced her own unraveling, had moved faster than her doubts, spoken smoother than her pain, smiled brighter than her sadness could reach. And it had worked. God, it had worked. Until it didn't. Until the fractures widened just enough for breath to catch between them. Now, standing barefoot on cold tile, heartbeat steady but hollow, she realized something simple and terrifying. The mask wasn't slipping. It was cracking. And cracks, she knew too well, didn't stay quiet for long. Somewhere below her apartment windows, Paris was beginning to hum. Distant espresso machines sputtering to life, wheels over cobblestones, shop doors unbolting. The world moved onward. On schedule. Expectant. Her phone buzzed softly on the dresser. First of many. But Marcelline didn't move to answer it. Instead, she touched the mirror's surface lightly with her fingertips. Not to fix anything. Not to adjust her image. Just to remind herself. I am here. I am still here. I am still here. And for the first time in months, that truth felt fragile. But maybe, just maybe, fragility was the beginning of honesty. She turned from the mirror slowly, spine straightening out of habit but breath catching in her throat. Today, the mask would crack wider. Today, she couldn't outrun what was rising. And deep down, deeper than fear, deeper than exhaustion, a part of her no longer wanted to. She stepped forward into the soft spill of daylight, her pulse quiet but present, and the next chapter of her life, unmasked, uncertain, uncharted, began to unfold. It always started the same way. A scent, a color, a phrase spoken in just the right register, and suddenly, the gravity of memory would pull her backward, seamless and unrelenting. Today, it was the cold tap of rain against her office window. Soft, rhythmic, familiar. The glass pane blurred faintly under the thin veil of drizzle. Her forehead rested lightly against it, the cool surface grounding her spinning thoughts. Then, as if summoned through muscle memory, the past unfolded. 17 years earlier, autumn, South Orange, New Jersey. The house on Willowmere Drive sat quiet under slate-gray skies. Rain trickled in steady rivulets down peeling white siding, pooling darkly around cracked flagstones of the front walkway. The garden was long untended, overgrown rose bushes bristling with thorns, ivy curling hungrily around the porch columns. Inside, the air was thick, the weight of silence pressing dense against faded wallpaper and worn carpet. 15-year-old Marcelline perched stiffly at the edge of the plaid love seat in the living room, her knees pressed tightly together beneath her pleated school skirt. Her white Oxford blouse was spotless, collar crisp, her shoes buffed to a soft gleam. An untouched algebra workbook sat open on the coffee table before her, the graphite of her mechanical pencil poised but unmoving in her slender hand. Across the room, her mother sat motionless in the recliner. The television was on, volume muted, flickering images of afternoon soap operas flashing across hollow eyes. Genevieve Marchand had once been radiant. Photographs lining the mantel proved it, A younger woman with auburn hair cascading in loose waves, smile wide and unrestrained, eyes sharp with ambition. Back then, she had worked as a litigation paralegal, navigating depositions with surgical acuity. But that was before. Before her father's accident. Before the endless parade of court dates, probate battles, and mounting hospital debt. Before the long spiral into bitter withdrawal and quiet disintegration. Now, Genevieve's once vivid hair hung limp and dulled, her figure draped carelessly in an oversized knit sweater and faded jeans. Her gaze remained fixed somewhere beyond the television screen, vacant, distant. Marcelline watched her from the corner of her eye, her jaw tense subtly. Her younger brother, Laurent, aged 10, thudded down the staircase noisily, backpack slung over one shoulder. "I'm going to Theo's." His voice cut the stillness bluntly. Genevieve did not stir, did not blink. Laurent paused, shifting awkwardly on the balls of his feet. His dark curls flopped over his forehead, his brows knitted in a habitual frown far too old for his age. He glanced at Marcelline expectantly, the unspoken request clear.
"Cover for me."
Her throat tightened. "Be back by 6, she murmured automatically. Without another word, Laurent slipped out the front door, the screen creaking faintly on its hinges. Alone again, Marcelline sat frozen in place. Her mother's shallow breaths rasped faintly in the dim room. The clock above the mantel ticked in slow, deliberate beats.
Tick, tock, tick, tock.
Across the coffee table, the open algebra workbook blurred as unshed tears prickled sharply behind Marcelline's lashes. "You cannot cry." Not here. Tears, she had long ago learned, solved nothing. Instead, she folded her hands deliberately in her lap, her spine straightening with mechanical precision. When Genevieve finally stirred, eyes glassy, mouth slack, and murmured hoarsely, "Did you pick up the mail?" Marcelline's reply was immediate, crisp. "Yes, Mama. It's on the counter. And the bills. I sorted them already." Her mother's gaze flicked faintly toward her, a flicker of brief awareness sharpening dulled pupils. "You're a good girl." The words landed heavy and brittle, like glass marbles dropped on tile. Marcelline's lips curled upward, soft, practiced. "I know." Genevieve turned back toward the muted TV, her shoulders sagging. The mask slid effortlessly into place. Later that evening, after Laurent returned and disappeared upstairs with a plate of reheated spaghetti, Marcelline stood alone at the kitchen sink, sleeves rolled neatly to her elbows. Her small, slender hands scrubbed dishes with meticulous focus, fingers moving with precise efficiency over porcelain and glass. The hum of the old dishwasher vibrated low in her ribcage. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the darkened kitchen window before her, hollowed cheeks, long neck taut, shoulders squared as though bracing against invisible winds. Behind her, her mother sat unmoving in the adjacent dining room, the dim light pooling around her motionless frame. As the suds slipped through her fingers and warm water scalded her skin, Marcelline inhaled slowly, deeply. "If you are perfect, if you stay controlled, then nothing else can fall apart." Her mantra crystallized clearly in her mind, sharp and luminous. Smile. Organize. Achieve. Excel. Control. Mask. By 16, she had learned to forge immaculate report cards, captain student council, maintain honor society accolades, all while grocery shopping on her mother's food stamps, quietly paying overdue utility bills with babysitting cash, and ensuring Laurent made it to soccer practice. By 18, her scholarship to Columbia was secured, escape mapped cleanly. The mask hardened into something seamless, unbreakable. Back in the present, Manhattan, floor 42. Marcelline jerked subtly away from the office window, her breath catching in her throat. The drizzle still tapped faintly against the glass, soft, persistent. Her reflection stared back, older now, sculpted sharper, more refined. The same mask, the same immaculate posture, the same deliberate grace. Yet, deep behind her dark eyes, a tremor quivered at the edges. Her chest rose and fell unsteadily. Her phone vibrated sharply on the desk behind her, a new email ping from Phelps titled Urgent, Kessler Clause Revision. Her fingers twitched toward it automatically. But for just a heartbeat longer, she remained still, the echo of Willowmere Drive reverberating beneath her ribcage. The email's subject line glared sharply against the soft white light of her monitor. Urgent, Kessler Clause Revision. Timestamp, 8:03 p.m. Marcelline sat motionless in her glass-walled office, her silhouette sharp against the ink-dark Manhattan skyline. Across the expanse of the floor, the once bustling M&A wing had long since quieted. Lights flickered sparsely from a few scattered desks, muted blue screensavers shifting rhythmically like distant lighthouses. Her own office was dim save for the soft halo of her monitor, casting cool tones across her cheekbones and collarbones. The tailored fabric of her navy silk blouse clung slightly to her skin, evidence of the faint perspiration that had gathered beneath the calculated calm. The numbers on the Kessler Clause revision flickered in front of her: financial caps, indemnity thresholds, integration liabilities. Lines she had once commanded with effortless clarity now shimmered, swimming and coiling into incomprehensible loops. Her right hand rested absently on her temple. A dull ache pulsed steadily behind her eye, not sharp like a migraine, but heavy, thick, pressing outward with relentless momentum. Her inbox chimed again. Client follow-up. Australia deal. Oliver. Quick clarification needed. Slide 14. J from research. Her jaw tensed. Her pulse banged hard against her carotid artery. Her breath snagged mid-inhale. The veneer of composure, so tightly stretched for weeks, months, now thinned dangerously. Her fingers twitched toward her mouse. Clicked the Kessler file open. Her eyes skittered across the contract. The words blurred again. Her throat closed abruptly, a dry, scraping contraction as if her own vocal cords twisted into knots. Suddenly, her chair felt too tight, her blouse collar too restrictive, the room too small. She shot up from her desk so quickly her chair toppled back with a muted thud. Her breath fractured audibly, short, gasping. Her hands trembled violently now, no longer the faint spasms she had trained herself to still beneath conference tables.
No.
Not here. Hold it. Hold it together. But the dam cracked. Wide and fast. She stumbled from her office into the corridor, heels clicking unevenly against the polished concrete. Her stride was uncharacteristically clumsy, her usual fluid grace frayed into jagged, erratic steps. Her reflection flashed in the darkened glass walls as she passed, elongated, distorted, unfamiliar. At the far end of the hall, the office wellness room's frosted glass door loomed, a seldom-used afterthought of corporate HR policy. Quiet space etched neatly in small serif type. Her fingers closed around the brushed steel handle, knuckles white. She yanked the door open, stepped inside, and let it swing shut behind her. The room was small, 10 by 10 feet, dimly lit by a single amber-shaded lamp. A simple beige love seat sat beneath a watercolor print of blurred poppies. A white noise machine murmured softly in the corner. On a low table, a glass carafe of water and 2 empty mugs sat untouched. Safe. Empty. Her knees gave way before she could register the motion. She crumpled onto the love seat, her body folding into itself. Her head bowed low, dark hair cascading forward like a curtain, obscuring her features. Her breath tore from her lips in ragged, uneven gasps. Her hands clawed at the hem of her blouse, nails biting sharply into silk and skin as if sheer force could peel the pressure from her chest. A sob cracked free, raw, guttural, involuntary. The sound startled even her. Her shoulders convulsed once, twice, her diaphragm seizing violently. Her ribs felt like they would snap. Her brain spun wild, detached thoughts crashing in dissonance. I have to finish the revision. I have to reply to Oliver. I cannot be weak here. I have to breathe. I have to. The sobs came harder now, great, racking waves that bent her torso double. Her teeth sank into the heel of her hand, muffling the ragged, keening spilling from her throat. Tears, hot, bitter, relentless, spilled freely down her cheeks, tracing sharp lines down her carefully powdered skin. Mascara bled faintly into the corners of her eyes. Her body shook uncontrollably. The tremors reached down into her core, shuddering through bone and sinew. She could not remember the last time she had cried like this. Not soft, dignified tears. Not the tidy, silent weeping of romantic films. But this, raw, animal grief, grief with no tidy shape or narrative. For 15 harrowing minutes, the storm consumed her. Her breathing rasped ragged through clenched teeth. Her hands clutched fists of fabric against her thighs, knuckles blanched. And then, slowly, painfully, the tremors dulled. Her gasps softened, shortened. Her shoulders, though still twitching faintly, sagged heavily against the love seat cushions. Her spine curled forward, chin dipping to her chest. Tears still slid steadily down her cheeks. Her breath rattled in uneven stutters. Her limbs ached, as if she'd run for miles. But she was empty now, scraped hollow. The pressure that had mounted behind her sternum for months had, for this fleeting instant, burned itself dry. Her fingers uncurled slowly. The fabric of her blouse was crumpled, damp in her fists. Her eyes lifted faintly, glassy, rimmed raw with red, and caught her faint reflection in the dark window opposite the love seat. What stared back was alien. Hair tousled, makeup streaked, jaw slack, eyes cavernous with exhaustion, and something darker, something close to ruin. For the first time in years, the mask lay shattered at her feet. There was no poised executive here. No immaculately calibrated partner track prodigy. Only a woman unraveling at the seams. Her chest rose slowly, one breath, then another. Her fingers flexed against her knees. For a split second, quiet and razor-sharp, a dangerous thought flashed across her mind, cold and clear as ice cracking across a pond. What if I didn't go back? What if I just stopped? Stopped answering. Stopped smiling. Stopped forcing each cell of her being to fit into this brittle architecture she had constructed since she was 15. Her throat constricted sharply again. A sob nearly returned, smaller this time, but sharper. Her phone vibrated aggressively in her skirt pocket, shattering the fragile stillness. She didn't reach for it. Instead, her gaze flickered sideways, landing on a slim, laminated card pinned to the side table. Employee Assistance Program, Confidential Counseling Hotline. A small, derisive exhale escaped her nostrils, half laugh, half scoff. As if a hotline could crack this open without burying me alive first. Yet her hand drifted slowly, uncertainly toward it. Fingers brushed the glossy edge, trembled faintly, and hovered. Frozen. The door creaked softly behind her. She jolted upright violently, body snapping taut like a bowstring. Oliver stood in the threshold, his brow deeply creased, his tie loosened, shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. His eyes locked onto hers, wide, alert, but unmistakably stricken. His gaze took in the scene, her crumpled frame, the tear-streaked face, the disheveled blouse, the shattered remnants of composure scattered visibly around her. For the first time since she'd met him 3 years ago, Marcelline did not muster a smile, did not tuck the mask swiftly back into place. She simply stared, hollow-eyed, exposed. Oliver's Adam's apple bobbed visibly as he swallowed. I was worried when you didn't answer, he murmured, voice rough with something close to panic. Marcelline? He stepped cautiously into the room, the door whispering shut behind him. She exhaled, long, slow, tremulous. Her lips parted, her voice cracking raw and fragile. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Oliver stood frozen, his tall frame silhouetted against the soft glow of the wellness room lamp. His breath was steady but shallow, nostrils slightly flared, jaw tight. In all their late-night debriefs, their frenzied corporate war rooms, their victory toasts in midtown bars, Marcelline had never seen him like this. Stripped of polish, unshielded. It was as if he were staring at her for the first time. His eyes didn't roam. They didn't avert politely to grant her dignity in her unraveling. They held steady, locked onto hers with quiet, palpable gravity. Marceline's throat bobbed convulsively. She tried to look away, instinct snapping fast to reconstruct her composure, to gather the scattered shards and reassemble her facade, but her limbs refused. Her body felt alien now, like a machine short-circuited. Oliver took a slow step forward, his brown Oxford soundless against the carpeted floor. His voice softened to something frayed and careful, as though approaching a wounded animal. "Marceline?" He crouched in front of her, folding neatly into a low crouch at her knees, positioning himself lower than her gaze. A deliberate gesture. Non-threatening. Inviting. His palm hovered midair, not reaching to touch her, but close enough that she could close the gap if she chose. His brows pinched, his mouth parted faintly, as if he was still searching for the words. "You don't have to keep doing this alone." The statement wasn't dramatic, wasn't grandiose or self-righteous. It landed with quiet precision, a soft blade slipping between ribs. Her lips twitched minutely. Her tongue darted to wet her cracked lower lip. "I've been doing it alone for so long, I wouldn't even know how to stop." The confession shuddered out of her without warning, dry, hollow, brittle. Oliver's throat worked visibly. I should have seen it." His voice cracked faintly. "I should have noticed sooner." A bitter breath escaped her nostrils. She dragged trembling fingers through her hair, the strands catching on jagged nails.
No.
"You weren't supposed to. I didn't want you to." Her jaw clenched hard enough to ache. "I built the perfect armor, Oliver. Years in the making. No one gets to see under it. Ever." Her voice splintered on the last syllable. Oliver's brows furrowed deeper. His hand lowered slowly to rest on the edge of the coffee table, still not touching her, but anchoring himself within reach. "I don't think it was armor," he murmured after a long pause. His gaze didn't waver. "I think it was scaffolding." Her brows knit faintly. "What's the difference?" she rasped. He exhaled quietly, glancing down at his hands before meeting her eyes again. Armor keeps things out. Protects from damage." He tilted his head slightly. "Scaffolding holds something up that hasn't finished building yet. It's temporary. It's meant to be taken down when the structure can stand on its own." Marceline's breath hitched, sharp and sudden. Her ribcage quivered faintly. Her hands dug unconsciously into her skirt, twisting the fabric tight. Oliver pressed on, voice soft but certain. "I think you've been holding yourself up on scaffolding for years.
And it's exhausted.
It's crumbling. It's not because you're weak. It's because you were never meant to hold this weight by yourself forever." Her lower lip trembled uncontrollably now. "Don't romanticize this, Oliver," she whispered, bitterness biting the edges. "I'm not some tragic figure with noble wounds. I'm a goddamn fraud who's about to torch her career because she can't handle a Kessler Clause revision without having a full breakdown in the HR nap room." Her breath cracked audibly. Tears welled again, slipping hot and unbidden down her cheeks. "I'm pathetic." The last word fell like a stone dropped into a deep well. Oliver inhaled sharply, not in shock, but something closer to anger. A flash of something fierce ignited behind his eyes. He leaned in slightly, voice taut.
No.
"Don't you dare call yourself that." His hand finally closed gently over hers, warm, solid, grounding. She flinched instinctively, but didn't pull away. His thumb brushed once across her knuckles, the smallest, subtlest motion, and her breath hitched again. "I've worked beside you for years," he continued, tone fierce but steady. "I've watched you navigate pressure that would make half this firm crumble. I've seen you hold entire teams together with nothing but grit and grace." His eyes darkened. "But I've also seen moments, glimpses. You smiling through migraines that left you pale under fluorescent lights. You covering for colleagues while juggling 3 deals. You disappearing sometimes, like you were fading into yourself."
His throat bobbed.
"I should have asked. Should have pushed. But you're so good at convincing everyone you're fine, Marceline." A ragged exhale burst from her chest, half sob, half laugh. "I made a career out of it." Her shoulders shook violently once more. Her face crumpled, too exhausted now to stop it. Oliver squeezed her hand gently, fingers curling tighter. "You don't have to anymore," he whispered. His voice dropped to a raw murmur. "Not with me. Please let me in." The plea lodged deep in her chest. Something cracked there, sharp, jagged, unfamiliar. Her eyes squeezed shut tightly. Tears spilled fast and hot down her cheeks, carving raw lines across flushed skin. For several long seconds, neither of them spoke. Only the faint murmur of the white noise machine and her uneven breaths filled the space. Then, slow, uncertain, Marceline's other hand lifted. It hovered midair, shaking, hesitant, before lowering to cover Oliver's hand resting atop hers. Her fingers curled weakly, gripping back. Her breath fractured. "I don't know how," she choked softly. "I don't know how to let go of it, of all of it." Oliver's lips parted, his jaw trembling faintly now. "We'll figure it out," he vowed, voice rough but steady. "Together." For the first time in longer than she could remember, Marceline didn't argue,
Didn't deflect.
didn't smile. She just breathed and held on. It was well past midnight when Marceline stepped out into the cool night air. The marble lobby of the Anders and Blythe Tower echoed hollow behind her, cavernous, pristine, indifferent to her hollowed chest and tear-streaked face. The weight of her earlier collapse still clung to her limbs, and ached deeper than muscle or tendon. Oliver had stayed with her until nearly 11, neither of them returning to their desks. They didn't speak of work after that moment in the wellness room. Not of Kessler clauses or Australia deals. Not of billable hours or client demands. Instead, they sat in stillness. Not comfortable silence. Not yet, but a truce of exhaustion. He'd offered to call her a car, even to walk her home. She'd refused with a faint shake of her head. She needed solitude now, space to cradle the raw, exposed nerve endings she'd kept buried for years. As she stood under the dim orange streetlights of Park Avenue, the city thrummed faintly around her. Cars whispered past, their headlights glossing the wet pavement. The sky overhead loomed thick with the heavy glow of distant clouds. Marceline inhaled deeply, her breath sharp in her chest. The cool air bit clean into her lungs, slicing through the residual fog of tears. She hadn't completely broken. Not yet. But cracks veined her carefully constructed edifice now, thin, precise fractures running along the hidden pressure points. And someone else had seen them. That realization pressed like a weight against her sternum, terrifying and, disturbingly, faintly relieving. Her apartment on the Upper West Side greeted her with its usual stillness. A sleek, minimal space with dark walnut floors, soft gray upholstery, and meticulous order. Not a magazine out of place. Not a glass left unwashed. And yet, as she slid her keys into the brass bowl by the entry, the curated perfection felt alien now, a museum diorama of a life she had sculpted to prove her invulnerability. Her phone buzzed against her palm. "Oliver. Just checking you got home safe." No reply needed. Sleep. No fuss. No prodding. A small act of presence. Her thumb hovered over the screen before she slowly typed. "I'm home. Thank you." Simple. Honest. She slid the device onto the marble countertop and exhaled shakily. The next morning, the firm's 8 a.m. buzz resumed with relentless precision. The Kessler deal closed overnight. Jay had triple-checked her revision notes. Oliver had quietly picked up the remaining correspondence without publicly flagging her absence. Marceline sat at her desk, spine straight, eyes alert, but something subtle had shifted. Her blouse today was soft cream, not her usual navy armor. Her earrings, usually sleek gold studs, were absent. Her coffee cup, for the first time in months, sat half full beside her keyboard, untouched. By 9:15, a soft knock interrupted her screen's endless data rows. Jay leaned subtly into her doorway, her sharp bob swinging as she tilted her head. "Morning. You okay?" Marceline blinked slowly. Jay was younger, mid-20s, whip-smart, and sharp-tongued when needed. She had idolized Marceline from afar when she first joined 2 years ago, often mimicking her crisp sartorial choices and clipped professionalism. Marceline's lips parted. She almost defaulted into "I'm fine." Instead, after a brief pause, she offered a fractional shrug. "Long night," she murmured, voice steady, but stripped of her usual polish. Jay's brows lifted, not in surprise, but quiet acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Figured. Her gaze softened slightly. "If you want me to buffer your calls for a bit, say the word." Another small act. Marceline's throat tightened unexpectedly. Her nod was faint, but genuine. "Thanks, Jay." Her assistant offered a quick, subtle smile before vanishing down the corridor. By midday, word of her early departure the night before had made its predictable rounds. Anders and Blythe thrived on whispers as much as on mergers. She caught fragments drifting through the glassed-in meeting rooms. Marceline didn't finish the Kessler call. Oliver rapped at himself. Heard, she looked wrecked. No malice. No scandal. Just curiosity pricking at the image of their unflappable colleague faltering. Her pulse flickered faintly each time, but it didn't spike into full panic. The worst had already happened. Her mask had slipped, and she was still here. At 3:22 p.m., her phone vibrated softly on her desk. Not Oliver this time. "Leandra. Cafe at 5? Your turn to vent. My treat." Marceline blinked slowly. Leandra. Her college roommate, still her closest tether outside of the firm's ecosystem. Sharp-tongued, fiercely loyal, utterly unimpressed by Marceline's high-rise accolades. A soft, nearly imperceptible smile touched the corners of her lips. For once, she didn't hesitate.
Yes.
"See you at 5. The cafe buzzed warm and low, indie folk drifting from ceiling speakers. Honeyed afternoon light bathed the rough brick walls. Leandra sat by the window, her cinnamon curls coiled loosely at her shoulders, fingers wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. Her amber gaze landed on Marceline the second she approached, laser-focused, unflinching. Marceline slid into the seat across from her, exhaling slowly. For a beat, neither spoke. Then Leandra quirked one eyebrow, her trademark expression of dry affection.
"So,
"Are we talking about it? Or am I making snarky metaphors about your dead-eyed stare?" A bark of startled laughter escaped Marceline's lips before she could stop it.
Short, cracked, raw.
But real. Her eyes shimmered faintly again, but she didn't look away. "I broke down last night." Leandra's expression didn't flicker with shock. Only a subtle shift, something deeper, older, understanding. "I know." Her voice was quiet but resolute. "I could hear it in your voice 2 weeks ago when you called and insisted you were just busy, but energized." Marceline's shoulders sagged minutely. Her palms flattened against the wooden table, grounding herself. For the next hour, the floodgates cracked wider. Not in a dramatic purge, but in slow, careful fragments. She spoke, haltingly, of the insomnia, the constant performance, the silent suffocation. Of her fear of being dispensable if she faltered. Of her inability to ask for help without tasting bile in her throat. Leandra listened without interruption, no platitudes, no quick fixes. Just unwavering presence. When Marceline finally fell silent, throat raw and palms damp, Leandra tilted her head thoughtfully. "I'm glad you finally stopped mistaking invulnerability for strength," she murmured. Marceline's lips twitched faintly. A breath, deep and steady, filled her chest. It was small, fragile, but it was more air than she'd inhaled in months. That evening, in her apartment, she did something unprecedented. She pulled open the sleek walnut drawer of her nightstand and retrieved the laminated counseling card from the wellness room. Her thumb brushed the embossed numbers. Her jaw clenched, shame, fear, resistance all flashing sharp behind her sternum. But then she exhaled, slow, measured, and dialed. The line clicked softly, a gentle voice greeting her on the other end. And for the first time, truly, Marceline began to speak. The therapist's office didn't look how Marceline expected. It wasn't clinical or sterile, no white walls, no cold metal chairs. Instead, Soft amber light spilled from shaded sconces, washing over weathered oak bookshelves and indigo velvet armchairs. There were framed sketches of abstract landscapes on the wall, not so much inspirational as open-ended, like dreams one couldn't fully interpret. The scent of bergamot tea curled faintly through the room. And seated across from her, in a soft charcoal wrap dress and tortoiseshell glasses, Dr. Sabine Moreau regarded her with quiet, measured attentiveness. Her eyes, a muted hazel, did not scan Marcelline clinically. They rested on her as if she had all the time in the world to simply witness. It unnerved Marcelline more than any brusque intake form could have. She sat rigid on the velvet settee, spine taut, hands clenched on her lap. Her breath had slowed slightly since arriving, but her muscles still hummed, with residual tension. Dr. Moreau folded her hands loosely in her lap. "When you called," she began, voice low and even, with an unplaceable lilt, "you said it felt like something inside of you snapped. Tell me more about that." Marceline's jaw flexed subtly. The words scraped against her throat. Unfamiliar, sharp. She'd run entire board meetings on 4 hours of sleep, closed billion-dollar mergers while dissociating from her own pulse. But here, confronted with a simple, open invitation, her tongue felt foreign. "I lost control. I've built my life to be immaculate, efficient. I never falter." Her breath quivered. "And when I couldn't hold it together last week, it felt like everything I'd built might collapse." Dr. Moreau nodded once, unhurried. "What does holding it together mean for you, Marcelline?" A faint crease formed between Marceline's brows. The simplest questions were the sharpest razors. Being needed. Her voice dropped half an octave, brittle. Being indispensable. Being better than dispensable. Her throat constricted. And never letting anyone see the cracks. Because if they see them, they'll leave. Silence folded gently around the words. Dr. Moreau's gaze remained steady. No soft cooing, no rushed assurances. Just space. Marcelline exhaled shakily, her chest rising and falling in shallow waves. Dr. Moreau's voice emerged after a beat, still soft, but edged with quiet precision. "Who was the first person who left?" Marceline's heart stuttered, a jolt so sharp she felt it echo down her spine. Her lips parted soundlessly. No one had asked it that plainly before. Not Oliver. Not Leandra. Not even herself. Her gaze drifted, unseeing, to the blurred sketches on the wall. Her pulse roared faintly in her ears. "My father," she whispered eventually. The syllables broke free like fragments of glass underfoot. Dr. Moreau's brow twitched minutely. Not surprise, but recognition.
She didn't speak.
Simply nodded once, an invitation. Marcelline swallowed thickly. Her knuckles blanched white against her lap. "I was 9. Her voice had hollowed, distant, almost flat. He had a whole other family. Somewhere else. 2 states over." Her lashes flickered low. 2 daughters. A wife. He'd been running parallel lives. "My mother found out one afternoon when she caught a voicemail meant for the other woman." A jagged breath punched from her lungs. She confronted him. He didn't fight. Didn't argue. Just packed a bag and left that evening. Her shoulders hunched minutely, a reflexive contraction, as if bracing against phantom impact. "He didn't say goodbye to me." The last sentence landed with a soft, final weight. Her chest hollowed inwards. "I remember watching him step into the cab from the upstairs landing," she continued after a long pause. Her voice was thinner now, frayed. "I had this ridiculous pink headband on, and I thought if I smiled brightly enough from the window, he'd wave goodbye at least." Her lips twisted into a bitter parody of a smile. "He didn't even look back." Her shoulders trembled, not violently, but a deep, internal shudder. "I made a decision that day, that I'd never be blindsided again. If I made myself so perfect, so indispensable, no one would ever leave me without warning again." Dr. Moreau's eyes softened, the faintest downturn of her mouth. "That's an enormous weight to place on a 9-year-old's shoulders," she murmured. "Perfection as a safeguard." Marceline's jaw clenched hard. Her breath quickened faintly. Perfection worked, she snapped suddenly, sharper than intended. It worked. I was valedictorian. Ivy League. Fastest promoted associate in my division.
Everyone wanted me.
Everyone needed me. Her voice cracked painfully. No one left. The silence after those last 3 words rang hollow. A tear slipped, unnoticed, down her cheek. Dr. Moreau exhaled slowly, a breath so soft it barely stirred the air. I wonder, she murmured, if somewhere along the line you stopped noticing that not all relationships are maintained by utility, and not all departures are preventable. The words struck low and deep. Marceline's chest spasmed, a sharp, involuntary jolt, as if her diaphragm misfired. She wanted to scoff, to argue, but instead, disturbingly, a strangled sob clawed its way up her throat. Her fists curled tighter. Her nails bit half-moons into her palms. Do you know what's worse than being abandoned? Her voice broke fully now, raw and jagged. Being so good at performing that no one even knows to stay. Her breath fractured audibly. I made myself untouchable, unassailable, and now no one even sees when I'm drowning. Dr. Moreau's features remained calm, but her voice grew weighted. Is that true, Marcelline? Is no one seeing you now? Marceline's throat bobbed hard. Her vision blurred faintly. Oliver's steady gaze flashed behind her eyelids. Jay's quiet buffer. Leandra's text. Her lips quivered. Maybe not no one, she rasped, barely audible. Dr. Moreau's nod was slow, measured. Then perhaps it's not too late to dismantle the scaffolding. Marcelline exhaled shakily. A single tear traced the curve of her jaw. As their session neared its end, Dr. Moreau folded her notepad, shut gently. There's something else I'd like to explore when you're ready, she said quietly, her gaze steady. Something about control and early attachment, particularly because… She hesitated. For the first time, her neutral mask flickered. Marcelline blinked. What is it? Dr. Moreau inhaled deeply, deliberating. Then, finally, I need to disclose something unusual. I don't normally breach therapeutic distance. But when you first called, I felt I recognized your surname. Her fingers laced lightly together. I worked as a consulting psychologist during the civil litigation process when your father's dual life became public record. Marceline's breath stopped, hard and instant. Her pulse slammed, a cold rush coursing from crown to fingertips. I wasn't involved with your direct family, Dr. Moreau clarified calmly, evenly. But I provided psychological profiles for children affected by multifamily fraud cases, yours included. Her voice softened, gentler now. I reviewed a deposition transcript when you were 11. Your mother had pursued legal action by then. You were described as unervingly composed, even at that age. Marceline's stomach dropped, her body locking in place. A long-forgotten memory flickered. The deposition room. The water glass too big for her hand. The attorney's impatient sighs as she sat perfectly still for hours. I remember now, she choked out, voice hollow. A woman with tortoiseshell glasses. You asked me if I ever had bad dreams. Her lashes fluttered rapidly. Dr. Moreau's nod was slow. I did. Silence cracked open wide between them, heavy and charged. For the first time in decades, the fracture line in Marceline's scaffolding didn't just splinter, it fissured deep and wide. Her gaze locked on Dr. Moreau's, bewildered, disoriented. But somewhere, dimly, impossibly, a thread of something else stirred. Recognition, continuity, and, perhaps, the earliest roots of understanding. It had rained that morning. One of those fine, mist-like rains that didn't fall so much as hang in the air, turning the world faintly blurred and glassy, edges softening like watercolors left in the sun. Marceline stood motionless on her apartment balcony. Her fingers curled loosely around the chipped porcelain of her coffee cup, long since gone cold. The city below bustled as it always did, taxis threading narrow streets, commuters with collars turned against the drizzle, snippets of hurried voices floating upwards before vanishing into white noise. But her gaze didn't track any of it. her eyes fixed unblinking on a crack in the balcony's cement railing, a thin, jagged line running diagonally through the surface. She'd never noticed it before. Funny, how something could fracture right under you for years without you seeing. Her phone buzzed softly on the small iron cafe table beside her. A message from Jay.
Hey.
Thinking of you today. No pressure, but I'm here if you want to talk. Simple. Unobtrusive. Yet it landed in her chest heavier than a dossier full of legal briefs. Inside the apartment, her work laptop sat untouched on the marble kitchen counter. Notifications had stacked steadily all morning. Leandra's follow-up notes from the Valencia acquisition, her assistant's flagged emails about tomorrow's client meeting, Oliver's terse but polite reminder about the upcoming board review. Her entire life's machinery hummed on without pause, waiting, expectant. It always did. And up until now, she always rose to meet it. Her jaw flexed hard. And still, the memory of Dr. Moreau's voice from yesterday echoed low and persistent. Perhaps it's not too late to dismantle the scaffolding. The word scaffolding had rattled in her brain like loose bolts ever since. The carefully engineered structure that held her upright and also kept everyone at a safe, sterile distance. Her chest constricted, painfully. On the small side table inside, something else caught her peripheral vision. A thin, faded envelope, cream paper dulled by age, edges slightly worn. It sat askew beneath a small brass paperweight. Her mother's handwriting. She'd found it late last night in a forgotten box when sleep had evaded her. A letter. Unsent. Written shortly after the custody hearings had closed when Marcelline was 12. Her hands had trembled opening it. The ink had smudged in places, teardrops or condensation. She couldn't tell. My brilliant girl. I don't know how to reach you anymore. You've become so poised, so careful, and so precise I sometimes wonder if I'm raising a little diplomat instead of a daughter. I want to believe you're fine, that you're happy. But part of me fears you're just very, very skilled at looking unbreakable. I'm sorry for the weight you've carried. I hope one day you'll lay it down and let someone catch you. I love you. Maman. Marceline's breath faltered as the memory sharpened. For a long time, she had resented her mother's gentleness, resented how easily she'd cried, how openly she'd hurt. It had felt like weakness. Now she saw it for what it was, the kind of strength she had denied herself. Her throat thickened. Her knuckles whitened around the coffee cup. Lay it down. The phrase echoed mercilessly. It was nearly noon when she finally slid into her desk chair, the soft click of her laptop springing awake. She sat back, shoulders taut, breath shallow, as the familiar grid of meetings and documents illuminated the screen. Second quarter projections. Legal summaries. Acquisition target briefings. Oliver's face in the corner of the team video call. Leandra's scheduled debrief. Jay's text lingering unanswered. Her entire infrastructure lay spread before her like a map. Every piece meticulously curated to sustain the persona she'd built since childhood. The indomitable Marceline Duval, executive, rainmaker, linchpin. Her chest ached. With mechanical precision, she moved the cursor to her inbox. Leandra's name hovered at the top. Subject: urgent. Valencia terms update needed before board meeting tomorrow. Hi Marceline, looping you back in for the final review and signatures. Your insights critical as always. Can we align by end of day? Critical. As always. Indispensable. Her finger hesitated on the trackpad. Something fragile and electric coursed through her chest. She could do what she always did. Slip effortlessly back into her armor. Bury the cracks under flawless briefs and midnight email chains. The scaffolding would hold. It always had. No one would see her bleed. But for the first time, the prospect didn't reassure her. It exhausted her to the marrow. Her gaze flicked to her phone again. Jay's text still aglow. I'm here if you want to talk. Then to her mother's letter, the faded ink still visible even at a distance. Lay it down and let someone catch you. Her throat convulsed hard. A ragged breath tore loose, raw and shaking. She reached for her phone. Her thumb hovered over Jay's contact. Her pulse hammered wildly. Her skin prickled with ice. And still, dismantle the scaffolding. The words tolled like a bell in her ribs. Slowly she typed, "Can we meet?"
Today.
"I think I'm ready to talk about what's really been happening." Her hand shook as she hit send. Tremors rippled up her arm, tiny, involuntary spasms. "It's okay." She inhaled shakily. "It's okay if I shake. It's okay if I crack. It's okay if someone sees me this way." Tears burned fiercely behind her eyelids, but for once, she didn't blink them back. Her phone vibrated almost instantly. "Of course. Anytime. Just say where." Her chest spasmed, a sob catching halfway, strangled but somehow lighter. Marcelline exhaled deeply, her shoulders loosening incrementally for the first time in days. Slowly, achingly, she closed her laptop lid. The soft, definitive click reverberated louder in her chest than she expected. For the first time in over a decade, she'd chosen to pause. To risk showing someone the person behind the precision. To choose connection over invincibility. Her gaze flicked to the crack in the balcony cement again. It was still there. Still jagged and imperfect. And for the first time, it didn't look like a flaw. It looked like an opening.
The mask is shattered. The truth is just beginning. Don't look away. The story continues soon.